5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, I like a good surprise.
You know what, Ryan?
Right.
I love how you eat a banana.
It's surprising how good I am with so little practice.
It's so sexy.
It's a low blow to start the podcast with, isn't
What you
it?
don't know is I'm really bad with tomatoes.
Anyway, hello, willkommen, bienvenue, konnichiwa, ni hao, jambo, marhaba,
All right.
ave. Welcome. It's the Arms Inquisition 207
Yeah.
on Sunday the 14th of November. I'm Amish Phil.
I'm Amish Ben.
And I'm Amish Matt.
And we have a returning guest in the studio, a returning champion.
Hell,
Hell yes.
Mr. Ryan 7. That's me.
The alchemical assassin.
Yes.
Hitman of Hermetics.
The
Nice.
jobs worthy of
How are you doing,
Jainism.
man?
I'm all right. Apparently, nerves just kicked in suddenly. Then and my quick wit disappeared for a moment, but I'm sure I'll ease into it.
I looked into our back catalogue, and the last time we spoke to you was week 4 of 3 weeks to flatten the curve.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
How did that turn out for you?
it's.
I've not been outside since, so I'm not.
I believe it's still a bit like this. It's still a bit, it's not quite flat
It's quite
yet.
curvy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, lots happened.
Yeah.
But it's nice to get away from sort of what's going on in the prosaic, not prosaic, what am I thinking, the profane world.
Yeah.
And maybe explore some alchemy and hermetics and stuff.
Yes, none of those muggles anymore. Let's,
And I got quite...
I'm a muggle, though, so I'm fucked.
Matt, you're such a muggle.
I am a muggle.
I mean, frankly, I've been locked up inside doing this stuff anyway, so I pretty much didn't notice most of the lockdown.
It's for the best. You
Busied
did.
myself with cups of tea.
You didn't miss much, other than
I had Boris made a fool of himself a few times, and that
Yeah.
was about it, really.
what's new. He's not calling Bojo the clown for nothing, do we?
No.
But I was quite excited. You said you had something to show me.
Yes, it's quite long though.
Right. Well, that's no problem. What's the girth situation?
Well, it's very thin,
Oh, right.
so
Interesting.
Razor.
yeah.
Right.
So, what do I have to show you? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, what we're going to do, what we're going to talk about, what you've been working on.
So last time I was here, we spoke about a few things, and towards the end of the podcast, I spoke about some pillars that I'd seen in Rivington, which is a nearby little village up in the hills. And on these pillars are some very mysterious symbols. And as I looked at them, things became apparent to me. So I've been following that trail. I don't want to go into it because obviously we're going to do a presentation on it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just some very murky, odd history when you think about it. However, in the end, these 3 pillars seem to have essentially given me the secret of alchemy, kind of the key to understanding the base religion, as if there was a single religion. Prisca Theologia, I think they call it in Latin.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's yet to be absolutely verified, but it looks that way. And I've brought some mostly visual images, all the images being quite visual. These pictures are very drawn.
And are these some you've taken yourself as well? Have you been going and...
Yeah, there's a few of my own. This is still a work in progress. However, over the last month or so, it's really all come together. So I just thought I'd take the opportunity, as you guys got a hold of me, to kind of pull it all into one place for you. However, I do think this might take more than one podcast, folks. So
Yeah.
we'll see how it goes and
We'll see how we get on and
do the rest at some point.
yeah, exactly. With no problem breaking this up if as required.
Yeah.
Essentially, we're going to talk about maths and mushrooms.
Yes.
And I'll avoid any actual maths or anything like that. We'll just show you some numbers. So if you see the numbers, don't be freaked out or anything. Just relax with the numbers. The numbers will be good to you.
Good, because I've never been a fan of maths.
Yeah.
It's my least favourite
No,
subject.
nor I. That's why it's so disappointing when I came across it all in this. No.
Right, shall I throw up the first image then?
Let's go for it.
All right, so
rid of
what
us.
have we got here? Woo!
Okay, so I'm from a little village called Blackrod, which has an interesting ring to it. And next to Blackrod is a little town called Rivington in Lancashire, in the north of England. And at these foothills, where you can see the hills on the bottom left-hand corner there, used to be a chapel from anywhere from 1370. Now, I'm not too sure if what we're going to look at is from later than that. There's a date on there, 1603, but I can't be quite sure it's not something else entirely. And you'll see why I mean that later on. Right. However, something could have been rebuilt. There's just something about these pillars that say earlier than 1603. If they are 1603, then there is some dark stuff going on, comparatively speaking, to the local Catholic populace at the time.
Why? Because this will be part of the Catholic persecution, won't it? Before Guy Fawkes, won't it? That sort of area.
Exactly.
We're talking 1603.
Yeah. So, and we're talking medieval times. So
get medieval on your ass.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I suppose it's not uncommon for churches to be built and rebuilt on the same location.
Exactly, as these older places. I mean, there are things on these pillars that do say church, Jesus, but when you look at it, it's like, this is just a veneer over the top. Something extra going on here. Yeah. So this all took place at a little village next to Rivington called Anderson Hall. And over time, I think in the 1800s, the whole place was dismantled, and some of these stones from a little chapel there ended up at Rivington Church, which you can see on the bottom right-hand corner. Right. And I'm going to show you next how I found out about this. So if we go on to the next slide.
I feel like Chris Whitty. Next slide, please. Oh, it's not.
Right, so these are some previous photos of it. This stone does have a little interest to it because it's got something on there called a Sator square. There was a film out recently called Tenet, which alludes to this Sator square. Right. Because the centre word on that is Tenet.
Oh, that's the top left image. You can see it there, just above his hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's this 1950s archaeologist that said, these are very interesting. And the story behind them is that they were found in this guy's garden wall, and the church asked for the holy stones to be please returned, and then unceremoniously dumped into this churchyard.
Okay.
So this churchyard goes back to like the 1600s and is quite old in itself. However, these stones weren't originally from there. And the only thing I could find about them is that there's a rumoured Templar origin to them. However, with a lot of these things, there's a rumoured Templar origin. Looking at them, I can understand why they would say this if anybody was in the know. How much that person was in the know, though, I don't know. It could have been from the Wigan Evening Post, for all I know. So, if we go on to the next slide. So this is where I come into it. So, as I said on the previous podcast, I'd taken some mushrooms, had a trip, and lots of weird things had happened. Among those weird things was I was shown the tarot, which was on my ex-girlfriend's bedside table, and I thought they were silly cards. And then after what had happened to me in the trip, I was compelled to go and look at them. And as part of my investigations into the tarot, I've found this image. Now, this image reflects a card called the Wheel of Fortune, card number 10. And Wheel of Fortune is a kind of a semi-ish famous medieval image, and it's usually of the sky with somebody turning a wheel around, indicating the turning of the heavens. Okay. And so this is what this is expressing. If you look in that bottom right-hand corner, you can kind of see that there's a guy at the top, sat there proud. He's the king. He's on top of the wheel.
He looks like a pharaoh.
He does, yeah. Well, he's a lion with a pharaoh.
Sphinx or something.
A sphinx, exactly, and we'll come to that in a moment.
Oh, right.
So then next to it, we've got this kind of other character who's essentially Set from the Egyptian pantheon, and then we've got this serpent character on the left. They don't matter, really. What matters is that these characters, one's on top, one's going around, and one's got flung off. The serpent's been flung off there, essentially. And it's just an analogy for life. grab on when you're going down, and you'll be back up again in no time.
Okay.
Would you like to hear a bit of a synchronicity?
Go for it. I did see a little grin before when you saw this image, so yeah I would.
So also on the image, for those listening, we've got a picture of Eliphas Levi in the top left-hand corner and a Baphomet underneath him. The current book I'm reading.
What?
Oh, wow. Transcendental Magic, Doctrine and Ritual by Eliphas Levi.
And do you know what's even weirder, Ryan?
Go on.
The way I'm reading my books this year, my books are picked for me by a random number generator.
Oh, wow.
So I had no actual choice in reading this.
Oh, great. I mean, it's an interesting book.
It's weird that you've
come
at the time when I'm reading it, because I get through books in, 3 or
mad.
4 weeks usually.
And there's your little goatee fella there in the corner.
Yeah.
He is, Baphomet. With his boobs.
With his bulbs. Well, I'll be explaining that before the end.
He's androgynous, you see.
Can you
He
explain
is,
my
and
boobs?
Know me, Matt.
That androgyny is one of the main themes of what's going on here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually represented on that main image there, the big one with the Sator square in the middle, by the two triangles intersecting each other, the masculine and the feminine becoming androgynous. And I'll explain what that means later on.
Cool.
But we get into Carl Jung. I've got a bone to pick with Carl Jung.
Okay.
He got there before me. That's what the bone is. Like.
Cool.
Right. So everything else around there are other things from Levi. So in that top right-hand corner, we have Eliphas Levi's version of that same Wheel of Fortune. And to the left of that, we have the Key to the Mysteries, which within it, again, we have this dual triangle, making like a hexagram, this intersecting triangle.
It's like the Star of David.
Very much so, yeah. It is that same symbol. Then we have a cross with the 4 directions there, like a compass, if you imagine it like that. You know, the main cross that's going through it there.
Yeah.
Intersecting the triangle. Then around it, we have 4 symbols. Taurus, Leo, Scorpio is the eagle, and the water is Aquarius. The Scorpio is eagle because it now if
they're interchangeable, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Scorpio and
because
eagle.
Basically the scorpion's not a very Christian or religious ideal. Okay. So they use there's 3 decans to every star sign. So they use the higher decan, which is like, well, essentially, and we'll get onto this later, what Scorpio represents is the genitals. And it's a bit like a scorpion, it'll sting you. Do you know what I mean? It can get you in trouble, that one. Okay. So a part of all this stuff, including Kundalini-style meditation, is basically taking that energy and converting it into something higher, into this bird. So often you get an eagle and a snake. The eagle comes and grabs the snake.
Right, that's a famous symbol, isn't it?
It's very famous and very powerful symbol, that one, when you think about it. Right. So on this image, we have the Sator square. And we'll come to solve all these things as we go through.
Yeah, because looking at it, like I'm looking at that, and we've got the Star of David, the as above, so below, intersecting triangles. We've got the 4 animals of the phoenix, or the zodiacal. Yeah. You've got the Scorpio / eagle
there, yeah.
The guy who represents Aquarius.
Yeah.
And then you've got Leo the lion, Taurus the bull. But why this square of numbers in the middle? That doesn't seem to make any sense.
Exactly.
So that's like the enigma, isn't it?
And that's what has sent me to Rivington, because what happened after I saw that for the first time was I went, this guy's either mad or he knows what he says at the bottom, and that is, it actually says at the bottom of that image, the key to the great arcanum, or something similar. I can't quite read it from here. Right. But arcanum means secret, and the tarot cards are called the arcana. So
and Levi was well into.
He was well into
the tarot.
Yes, he was well into all these things.
Yeah.
He was often derided, I think, because he still had religious roots, and his practice seemed to be through kind of a Catholic lens, because he'd been a priest or something similar at some point.
Cool.
So, as you rightly described, we've got these 4 geezers around that Sator square, and that'll really come into play later, as will Baphomet in that left-hand corner there, but we'll go into all these things as we get through.
Next slide.
Next slide. Okay, now, so I've been on Wikipedia, read that there are actually some Sator squares in the country, and then suddenly seen one that said Rivington Chapel next to it.
What?
And then gone, oh my God, I literally live 10 minutes away, jumped in the car, sped down there, and I actually filmed it. Now, these aren't from that film. These are from when I went down the day after or so. And I actually went and filmed it for an episode of a video I do for YouTube called The Secret Science.
Link in the show notes, listeners.
Well,
as
I've not
always.
done anything on it for a while.
No, but still, they're great.
Yeah,
and
thank
they're,
you,
and they're
thank
there.
you.
So
They are
people
there.
should go and watch them.
Yeah, go and watch The Secret Science. They're funny, at least, and you'll learn some stuff. See me being a goof.
Eating bananas.
Eating bananas. Did you see the Starship one?
Yeah, I'm waiting. I'm waiting.
Oh,
That was
mate,
the trailer.
no,
I'm waiting
that's-
for the full video.
Yeah, well, that's been put on hiatus till the book's
I'm not
done.
surprised. The production quality
Oh
is
my God.
fucking mind
Took
blowing.
me ages, that one. Yeah, because I come from this background, don't I? I'm a video producer myself.
Oh, right, okay.
So, I've rushed down there. It's probably about 1 o'clock in the morning, and it's absolutely free. It was this time of year. No, it wasn't. It was December, and it was really cold, and I could see my breath, and I was just really excited and turning a funny colour. And while I was there, you can hear me commenting live what I think. And the first thing I say is, these look like tarot images. What I meant by that was they look like astrotheological images. Astrotheology is kind of the religion, the spirituality of the stars. Astro, the stars, Theo is God. So I know him by his first name. So, on that first pillar, pillar one, basically we got 4 pillars. 3 pillars, but the 4th one we're going to totally ignore because it's just gobbledygook writing on there. However, we got this first pillar here that's kind of got these diamond things on it and lots of things that are very difficult to pick out. Second pillar, we've got a lion on there. We've already bumped into a lion once tonight.
Right.
Underneath that, we've got some snooker balls. Underneath that, we've got a steering wheel for a ship. Next to that, we've got a dude running over somebody on a horse.
Is that the top right?
Yeah, on the top right. And this next, so these are all actually pillars, and the pillars are often in 2 sections. So if you see 2 photos over each other, it's because that's one pillar. I've just divided up into 2 photos.
Right, got you.
Okay.
So hence pillar 1, pillar 2 left, and then pillar 2 right next to it. So on that pillar 2 right at the top, we've got a guy that looks like he's walking on somebody on a horse that looks a bit like the death card. I don't think that anymore, but that was my thought at the time. Underneath that, we've got a chap that looks very much like the hermit from the tarot next to a 3-legged swastika.
Oh, that's like the Isle of Man.
Yeah, I was
It
gonna
is
say
exactly
the
like the Isle of Man,
thing,
but
isn't
that's very old. That goes back to the Minoan civilization. However, I'm getting beyond myself here. So
Right.
all these things, I didn't think it was a set of snooker balls, but a few of these other things that I'm, these hints. So if we go on to the next slide, please. So on this other pillar, we've got 2 figures on the left side, and then towards the right, where there's a lot less on the pillar, we've got this Sator square. So it looks like we've got God on the top because he's over Jesus, and he's got a big beard, and he's got these things of rulership with him. He's got this big orb with a cross over the top, like a king would have, and he's got this rule for ruling. And underneath him is a funky Jesus out in a white, looking a bit chubby. Everyone here is like needs to go on a diet, basically. Yeah. They're all looking like, It's all very odd. It's Christian, but not quite. Like the Sator squares originally been found in Greece, in Rome, in Pompeii, near Pompeii. So that's pre-Christian.
That's the earliest example that's been found, is it?
It is, and we'll move on to who was using it later.
Okay.
Later on. So,
is it worth explaining just for the people who are listening the properties of the Sator square, how it mirrors itself?
Yeah, I can't remember that.
We'll move into. I tell you, I'll do that now for you, seeing as we've asked, and then we can negate doing it a bit later on.
All right.
So it says. No, I'll tell you what, we're not. We won't. We'll move on because what it says gives who one of the characters is away. So we'll move on to the next one. It's quite quick. So
all right.
Okay.
Right. So now we discussed the tarot, and now we can see how these things do actually look like tarot cards. We've got the Lion there of Leo on the Strength card. We've got the Wheel of Fortune looking thing there. We've got the Hermit in the top right, and then underneath that we've got the Emperor with his orb and scepter.
Yeah.
And you can see how they're all very similar.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, I'm not saying I was 100% right, but this, I'm showing you where my inkling was coming from.
Yeah.
So I don't know how familiar your audience is with the tarot. Obviously, culturally, we think it's this like fortune telling thing and a bit silly and very new age. That wasn't what my trip said. And when I started to look into the tarot, I did realize that, yes, those rumors about it coming from Egypt originally and this being the secrets of the ancients, it is true. I'm going to prove it during this presentation. And those cards are basically a storehouse of concepts, very Jungian. Well, look, Carl Jung was doing this stuff, so it's not very surprising that it's Jungian in the end. Jungian as in relying on opposites and such similar devices that, you know, we see in lots of religions. In tarot, it's fire and water. In the East, it's yin and yang. You know, we have this duality thing everywhere.
Is as far as like is orthodoxy, historical orthodoxy, would that say that the tarot, was it the Roman gypsies who are sort of credited with bringing it to Europe? Yeah,
that was a rumor for a while, and then as they looked into the history, that wasn't true. But you got to remember that the gypsies are really gypsies. That's where they were said to come from. We have other peoples that we call gypsies. Do you know what I mean? Certainly in Britain, we have this kind of slightly Irishy community that we call gypsies. In Europe, gypsies are quite dark skinned. You know, it just depends where you're from. You know, we say Romany gypsies as well. That's another lot. So gypsies has just become this word that we use for traveling people.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's the trick. It's the Egypt part of that. Now, they actually come from Venice in the 1400s. We can't trace them back any further than that. But what you can trace back is the ideas, the secrets. You can compare and contrast because these are symbols. And the thing about symbols is they don't require a language. They require a little cultural context and a little grammar, as it were, on the zodiac and the planets and what people were thinking about those things. And you need to be able to kind of change your modern mind into the mind of the ancients in order to be able to get your head around it a little. But really all the mind of the ancients is that they were a little more in touch with the unconscious self. And if you've read Jung, you'll know that actually one of the main problems with modern man is that we're not allowing that unconscious self up, which is there in the quiet times, basically. Right. Cool. So the tarot and what I'm about to discuss with you and a lot of other of these esoteric traditions is displayed here. I would recommend the tarot to anyone. I really would. Be careful who you're learning from, but I really would. The best thing, you know, as a guy that went through university and has, you know, spent a lifetime learning martial arts and other similar things, the best thing I ever did with my life was learn tarot after that trip.
Wow. Cool.
Okay, next.
Move on.
Right, I want to swear, please. What the fuck is that?
I've no idea.
All right, so I've coloured these in at this point. And it's just a confusing mess. We've got some cheeky chap at the bottom with some hearts on his head, holding a phallic key with two.
Oh, now that's a symbol that Levi references as well. The sort of like a double-ended cross. Yeah,
we'll get into that very soon.
Cool.
We've got this really weird diamond shape that the whole thing's in, and then it says Basidizi2.
Say that again.
D2. It's that new Star Wars villain.
Yeah.
That robot one. Above that, we've got a triple coiled serpent that looks to me like it says 666. And then above that, we've got, look, what, you know, if you're going to say Templar, that looks like a Templar kind of, it's certainly a warrior religious insignia.
It looks like a white shield with a red cross, which was the Templar uniform, the white mantle with the red cross on.
That kind of permeates the Muggle world.
Yeah.
Penetrates, is it?
Yeah.
And so, well, you think it might be something like the Logos, which is often something represented by a sword. The Logos is an original principle that kind of creates things by dividing things up. You know, I've got a sausage, I cut it in half, I've got 2 sausages now. That kind of an idea. That's the crash course in the Logos, which will take you years to understand. Then above that, we have the ubiquitous eye in a triangle. It's difficult to see, but the top of that pyramid is the eye in the triangle.
Fucking hell, is that a snake's head below it?
Just below it, yeah.
Wow.
Shit.
Okay.
So, the all-seeing eye.
Yes, the all-seeing eye. I'd like to add that underneath that shield is actually... older tarot cards weren't like modern tarot cards. They were much slimmer and taller because there's to certain proportions, let's say, at this time. But you can imagine if you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure that there are certain proportions out there that are more valued than others. And that is the shape of an original tarot card. Apart from the bit that tucks under, the rounded bit at the bottom, that's the shape of a tarot card.
Are we talking golden ratio, right?
We are talking the golden ratio, my friend.
Wow.
So next to that, holding that, we've got these 2 arms. Okay. So I've not decoded anything there really. I've just told you a few features, but we'll go through and decode more things. Any questions?
You did well to see all of that, you know, because you've obviously highlighted.
Yes.
You've used different colours to highlight the different bits, but was it like covered in moss or something when you first saw it?
It was bloody covered in ants, red ants that were biting all the time. I mean, not the first time that I'd gone, but when I went there in the spring, you know, when I thought the sun's going to be out a bit better and I can get some decent... It's very difficult to get good light with them because of the walls around it and the other gravestones and where the sun goes. You've got to get up at the crack of Steve to go and, you know... So... bloody Steve. So we got all these things on here. There's so much. So I mean, there's a word up the right-hand side there. It says "samung." I'm like, what's "samung"? And there's a backwards P. It's just. You can say, yeah, it's a Christian thing. It's like, what? If
it's
you're
a
drunk,
bit mad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely just gobbledygook.
And I mean, this plays into the sort of Templar connection, doesn't it? Because there are rumours, Templars worshipping Baphomet, for example, or And the time, did you say late 1300s was it from? Do we think it's from?
Yeah, possibly from then. You know, they've not dated each of these individually. So weren't the Templars like 1200s? And then obviously they've gone to Scotland, and Scotland's just round the corner, folks.
1307 was when they were arrested.
Okay.
And then I think it was about 5 years later, maybe, when Jacques de Molay was burnt in front of the Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So it works with the timeline that they would have... And it was only people... I've got to remember, it's only in France. Philip only had jurisdiction in France to persecute the Templars. Templars in other countries would have...
And Gibraltar and other places, yeah.
Malta, yeah. Knights of Malta.
Gibraltar. The Knights of Gibraltar.
But yeah, that's a common... thinking that they maybe went to fight for Robert the Bruce, isn't it, in the Civil War?
And yeah, like, because they were essentially mercenaries at that point. They had no home, and it's like, what are you going to do? What are you good at? Well, we can fight people.
And Robert the Bruce was Catholic as well, which helped.
And I will note that the insignia of the Knights Templar and the Poor Knights of Christ share something with that androgynous principle, and that is that those... on the back of the horse of the symbol for the Poor Knights of Christ is 2 men sat on one horse, very close to each other. Now you can imagine what that means.
Oh.
And that was one of the charges that was levelled against them, wasn't it? Was homosexuality.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me that they were doing all these things.
Kissing the anus in the initiation.
Well, that seems
what
like
they were charged with.
That's essentially black magic, as in spycraft, as in. Well, I can tell somebody you've kissed my arsehole now.
Right, okay.
Yeah, they were like, it's
That's
like,
what it is.
it's like
So
being
is that-
Epstein.
Is
it
that
is.
where Kiss My Ass comes from then?
I think that's just something we like to say to each other.
I'm going to look into that.
Are you still there, Ben? We can't see you on screen, so we don't know.
Yeah, still here.
Good.
It's amazing so far. I'm a bit concerned that you've gone out to colour in these stones. Won't anyone be pissed off?
No, this is all done in Photoshop. I've gone out with a piece of chalk and some 10-year-olds and just scribbled all over them.
Right, shall we move to the next one?
Yes. So what I'd really like to say about this is that it's all gobbledygook, and you can understand the Templar connection, as you two guys have obviously picked up on.
So is this the this is the one that wasn't in the first picture of the 3 pillars?
This isn't. Yeah,
this is the
one,
4th pillar,
no,
is it?
So this is just. I've just coloured this. This is the very first one you saw. This is pillar 1, as I call it.
Okay.
So you'll never see the 4th pillar.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've just coloured this in because all the reference photos from now on, in the majority, are going to be coloured in, just so we can see them properly.
No problem. Yeah.
I
just can't believe that these would have been used in a Christian chapel.
Yeah.
Oh
weird,
right,
isn't
yeah.
it?
Well, someone's garden. I was thinking about next to his daffodils, isn't it, man?
It's
Yeah.
how much it's changed, I suppose, isn't it, over the years?
Well, once we get to grips with that Sator square, we can start to see this line of thinking, this line of religious thinking, religious, spiritual, magical. I don't know. It's difficult to say at this point because it's all very technique based. Everything that I discovered.
Wow.
Yeah.